This message didn't find you by accident. Not tonight. Not at this exact moment, when the world has gone quiet, and your thoughts finally got loud enough that you couldn't ignore them anymore. You didn't click this because you were bored. You didn't stay because you had nothing else to do. Something inside you recognized this moment before your mind could explain it. Right now, you're probably sitting in silence. Maybe the lights are low. Maybe everyone else is asleep. Maybe your phone is the only thing glowing in the room. And for once, you're not scrolling fast. You're not rushing. You're here, still listening. That matters. Because nights like this are when the truth shows up. Not the version of you that performs during the day. Not the version that smiles, works, jokes, survives. The real one. The one who carries everything, quietly, and never quite knows where to put the weight down. You've been strong for a long time. Longer than most people realize. Strong in ways that don't look impressive on the outside. Strong in silence. Strong in endurance. Strong in choosing to keep going when stopping would have been easier. And the strange part is no one ever taught you how to rest from that strength. So you learned how to keep moving instead. You learned how to be fine. You learned how to say, it's okay, even when it wasn't. You learned how to carry things alone without making noise. And eventually, people stopped checking. Not because they don't care, but because you made it look like you didn't need them. That's a lonely kind of strength. If you're honest with yourself, there are moments when you wonder how you ended up here. Not in a dramatic way. Not with panic, just a quiet question that comes late at night. How did my life become this heavy without anyone noticing? You didn't fail. You didn't fall behind. You didn't miss some secret deadline everyone else met. You adapted. You adapted to disappointment. You adapted to responsibility. You adapted to being the one who holds things together. And adaptation can look a lot like strength. Until it starts costing you peace. Let me say something clearly. Because you don't hear it enough. You were never meant to carry everything by yourself. But somewhere along the way, you became the reliable one. The understanding one. The calm one. The one who absorbs chaos so others don't have to. And now, you're tired in a way sleep doesn't fix. You don't need advice tonight. You don't need motivation. You don't need someone telling you to stay positive or push harder. What you need is to be seen without having to explain yourself. That's why this message found you. Not to change your life in one moment, not to give you answers, but to sit with you in this exact emotional space and say, you're not imagining the weight you feel. There's a quiet grief that comes with being the strong one. A grief no one talks about. The grief of never being asked, who's holding you? You've lost things without ever naming them as losses. Versions of yourself. Dreams you postponed. Softness you didn't feel safe expressing. And you kept going anyway. That says something about you. But it doesn't mean you have to keep living like this forever. Right now, I want you to notice something small. Your breath. Not to control it. Just notice it. Notice how even breathing sometimes feels like effort. Like your body forgot what it's like to fully exhale. That's not weakness. That's what happens when you're always bracing for the next thing. You've been living in almost okay, almost calm, almost at peace, always waiting for the moment when things finally settle. But here's something no one tells you. Life doesn't suddenly get quiet on its own. You have to choose stillness or it never comes. And choosing stillness can feel terrifying when your identity has been built around holding everything together. Because if you stop, who are you then? That question scares a lot of people more than exhaustion ever could. So you keep going. You stay busy. You stay useful. But deep down, you know you're not just tired. You're longing. Longing for ease. Longing for something real. Longing for a moment where you don't have to be on. This is that moment. You don't need to fix your whole life tonight. You don't need a plan. You don't need clarity. You just need permission to pause without guilt. If this message resonates, it's not because you're broken. It's because you're aware. Aware enough to feel the gap between who you are and who you've been forced to become just to survive. And awareness is the beginning of change, not the loud kind, but the honest kind. Change doesn't always arrive as action. Sometimes it arrives as truth. The truth that you matter even when you're not producing. The truth that your worth isn't tied to how much you carry. The truth that rest is not something you earn, it's something you need. You're not weak for wanting a different way to live. You're human. And tonight, in this quiet space, you're allowed to admit that. Stay here for a moment longer. You don't have to rush. Nothing is being asked of you. In the next part, we'll talk about the shift, the one that happens when you stop surviving and start choosing yourself without burning everything down. For now, just know this. If this message found you, it's because you're ready for something deeper than noise, something calmer than chaos, something truer than the life you've been forcing yourself to accept. And you don't have to walk toward that alone. At some point in your life, you learned that slowing down felt unsafe. Not because anyone said it out loud, but because every time you paused, something fell apart. A responsibility got dropped. Someone needed you. A problem showed up that only you seemed capable of handling. So you trained yourself to stay alert, to stay ahead, to stay useful. And slowly, without realizing it, your nervous system forgot what safety feels like. You don't relax anymore, you collapse. You don't rest, you shut down. And even in moments of quiet, your mind keeps scanning for what could go wrong next. That's not personality. That's survival. You became good at reading rooms, good at anticipating needs, good at adjusting yourself so others felt comfortable, and every time you did that, you moved a little further away from your own center. You didn't lose yourself all at once. You misplaced yourself gradually. People praise your strength, but they don't see the cost. They don't see how often you choose silence over honesty, how often you swallow disappointment just to keep the peace, how often you tell yourself, it's not worth bringing up, and maybe it wasn't at the time. But those unspoken moments don't disappear. They settle inside you. They become weight. That's why even on good days, something feels unfinished. Like you're living half a step behind your own life. Let me tell you something important. You are not asking for too much. You never were. You just learned to ask for too little. You learned to minimize your needs because you didn't want to be a burden. You learned to tolerate emotional absence because consistency felt rare. You learned to accept crumbs because you weren't taught how to expect more. And here's the part that hurts quietly. You became so good at being low maintenance that people forgot how much care you actually deserve. But tonight isn't about blame, it's about recognition. Recognition that you've outgrown the version of life you've been forcing yourself to fit into. You're not restless, you're misaligned. You're not ungrateful or undernourished emotionally. You're not broken, you're exhausted from being strong in the wrong places. There's a shift that happens when you finally stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "What have I been carrying that was never meant to be mine alone?" That shift doesn't happen loudly. It happens quietly. Usually at night. Usually when you're alone. Usually when something inside you finally admits, "I can't keep doing this the same way." That admission is not failure. It's wisdom. You don't need to blow up your life to change it. You don't need to disappear. You don't need to become someone else. You need to return to yourself. Return to the version of you that didn't measure worth by endurance. The version that felt joy without guilt. The version that believed connection didn't require. That version still exists. She's just been waiting for you to stop running. And here's the part most people miss. Choosing yourself doesn't mean abandoning others. It means including yourself in the equation for the first time. It means saying no without explaining yourself into exhaustion. It means resting without justifying it. It means allowing your feelings to exist without immediately solving them. It means letting some things stay unresolved without punishing yourself for it. You don't need clarity right now. You need kindness directed inward. The world has taught you to be efficient with your emotions, to process quickly, to move on fast, but healing doesn't work like that. Healing is slow because trust rebuilds slowly, especially trust with yourself. You've been betraying your own needs for so long that your body learned not to expect care. That's why gentleness feels unfamiliar. That's why receiving feels awkward. That's why rest feels undeserved. But none of that means it's wrong. It just means it's new. Tonight, I don't want you to promise anything. I don't want you to decide your future. I don't want you to be better tomorrow. I want you to remember this feeling. The feeling of being understood without being dissected, because this is what safety feels like. Not fireworks. Not intensity. Not pressure. Just presence. And once you feel it's heaven briefly, you can't unknow it. You'll start noticing when situations drain you, when people expect access without care, when relationships require you to shrink, and instead of blaming yourself, you'll quietly step back, not dramatically, not angrily, just honestly. That's how real change begins. If this message reached you tonight, it's because you're ready to stop surviving and start listening. Not to the noise, not to expectations, but to the steady voice inside you that says, there has to be a softer way to live. There is, and you're already closer to it than you think. Stay with that truth. Let it breathe. Let it settle. You don't need to rush the next step. For tonight, it's enough to know this. You were never meant to disappear inside your life, and you don't have to anymore.